Welcome to Beyond the Music, the podcast where we dive into the lives and stories of people who shaped the world of music. I am Karina.
And I'm Lena. We're both classically trained singers, and this podcast is our chance to explore the fascinating intersections of music, history, and humanity.
In our previous episode, Lena discussed synesthesia and music. I hope I said that right.
Yeah, I guess so.
It's a very difficult word.
You're the English speaker.
And today we will be exploring the topic of Gothic horror music in honor of October, Halloween. So I'm super excited. So to start, where did Gothic horror music come from? What consists of Gothic horror music? So I've compiled a list of the most well-known music that when we hear, we right away identify as, yes, this is going to be horror. This is going to be scary. So going back all the way to Hildegard von Bingen, her morality play.
Whoa.
Oh yes, we are going way long back. So a morality play is a genre of medieval and early Tudor drama. The term is used by scholars of literary and dramatic history to refer to a genre of play texts from the 14th through 16th centuries that feature personified concepts, most often virtues and vices, but sometimes practices or habits. Alongside virtues and vices, they have angels and demons, who are engaged in a struggle to persuade a protagonist who represents a generic human character toward either good or evil. So very moral, which is why we call it a morality play. The common story arc of these plays follows the temptation, fall, and redemption of the protagonist. So Hildegard von Bingen composed Ordo Virtutum, or in English, Order of the Virtues. She composed in 1151, very long time ago, in Germany, and it is the earliest known morality play by more than a century. It is the only medieval musical drama to survive with an attribution for both the text and the music. And funny enough, it was composed during the construction and relocation of her abbey at Rupertsberg. So another important moment in her life. The subject of the play is typical, again, for a morality play. It recounts neither biblical events, nor a saint's life, nor miracles. Instead, Ordo Virtutum is about the struggle for a human soul, or anima, between the virtues and the devil. If we want to categorize how it is set up, it goes as such. Part 1. A prologue in which the virtues are introduced to the patriarchs and prophets who marvel at the virtues. Part 2. We hear the complaints of souls that are imprisoned in bodies. The, for now, happy soul enters, and her voice contrasts with the unhappy souls. The soul is too eager to skip life and go straight to heaven. When the virtues tell her that she has to live first, the devil seduces her away to worldly things. Part 3. The virtues take turns identifying and describing themselves, while the devil occasionally interrupts and expresses opposing views and insults. This is the longest section by far, and although devoid of drama or plot, the musical elements of this section make it stand out. Part 4. The soul returns, repentant. Once the virtues have accepted her back, they turn on the devil, whom they bind. Together they conquer the devil, and then God is praised. And of course, ending with part 4, a procession of all the characters. I'd like to go through the roles and which voice types typically are presented in. So the soul is a female voice. The virtues are sung by 17 solo female voices, which include humility, queen of the virtues, hope, chastity, innocence, contempt of the world, celestial love, discipline, although the name is scratched out in the manuscript. Modesty, mercy, victory, discretion, patience, knowledge of God, charity, fear of God, obedience, and faith. These virtues were seen as role models for the women of the abbey, who took joy in overcoming their weaknesses and defeating the devil in their own lives. The chorus of the prophets and patriarchs are sung by a male chorus. The unhappy chorus of souls are sung by a women's chorus. And most importantly, what makes this piece of music so different is that the devil, a male voice, does not sing. Mm-hmm. He only yells or grunts, according to Hildegard. He cannot produce divine harmony. So that's what makes it not fit in. The devil is always something different. And that is what creates this Gothic horror idea, something different, something out of the ordinary. The composition itself, Hildegard von Bingen received no traditional education in composition, nor was she trained to play instruments. However, she was self-taught, but not in the way that many people would expect. Her whole life, Hildegard von Bingen claimed to be both clairvoyant and clairaudient. And if I understand these terms correctly, clairvoyant is to see visions, clairaudient is to hear visions. So her music came to her in trances. She also attempted to describe what she was going through in works such as the Ordo Virtutum. Another interesting fact of this classic piece are the healing properties that Hildegard von Bingen believed in. She believed that music had a powerful, even medical effect on people. Music was a type of biblical meditation. The neurologist Oliver Sacks has researched Hildegard's belief that music can bring a connection between the human brain's two hemispheres to heal and calm the body. So very interesting. And this, we have to remind ourselves, this was composed in 1151, almost 1,000 years ago. Well, actually, way more. But such a long time ago. The next piece I would like to present is do-do-do, do-do-do. And there you go. Everyone knows that song. J.S. Bach's Toccata and Fugue in D minor, BWV 565. It is one of the most widely recognized works in the organ repertoire, as just shown because I sang a few notes and Lena completed it.
Yeah, he's the godfather of creepy organ music.
Exactly. The music is giving you that idea, the feeling of creepiness. Funny enough, the date of its origin is unknown for this piece. Scholars have suggested between 1704 and the 1740s. The piece opens with a toccata section, followed by a fugue that ends in a coda, and is largely typical of the North German organ school of the Baroque era. Little was known about its existence until the piece was discovered in an undated manuscript produced by Johannes Rinkt. It was first published in 1833 during the early Bach revival period through the efforts of composer Felix Mendelssohn, who also performed the piece in 1840. It was not until the 20th century that its popularity rose above that of other organ compositions by Bach, as exemplified by its inclusion in Walt Disney's 1940 animated film Fantasia, that featured Leopold Stokowski's orchestral transcription from 1927. Now, for the record, Disney Fantasia will be coming back quite a bit. So in film, BWV 565 was used as film music well before the sound film era, becoming a cliché to illustrate horror and villainy. Its first use in sound film included in the 1931 film Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, the black and white film, and the 1934 film The Black Cat. Now we're quickly going back to Disney's Fantasia. By the time Disney's Fantasia was released in 1940, the animations accompanying BWV 565 had been made semi-abstract, although Fishinger's original idea that the performance of the music start with showing Stokowski directing his orchestra was preserved. Taylor begins his narrative with, "What you're going to see is the designs and pictures and stories of what music inspired in the minds and imaginations of a group of artists." So very similar to the topic you presented last time, Lena.
Yeah.
The opening number, Toccata and Fugue, will be absolute music. Music that exists for its own sake. This is what Taylor continues to say, and will try to depict what might go on in the mind of the person listening to it. At first, you are more or less conscious of the orchestra, Taylor explains. So our picture opens with a series of impressions of the conductor and the players. Then the music begins to suggest other things to your imagination. Oh, just masses of color or cloud forms or vague shadows. So very similar to your topic. And continuing on, in 1950, this piece of music came again in Sunset Boulevard as used as a joking reference to the horror genre. This piece has appeared in many other films, including 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea from 1954, in which it is played by Captain Nemo on the organ of the Nautilus. The 1962 film adaptation of The Phantom of the Opera used BWV 565 in the suspense and horror sense. So I think it's safe to say that Bach's ingenious composition has become an instant Gothic horror recognizable sound to invoke this story. Continuing on through history, I have to mention Berlioz's Dream of Witches' Sabbath, or in French, Son de Nuit de Sabbat, which is the fifth movement from Symphonie Fantastique. In this movement, he sees himself at a Sabbath in the middle of a horrible troupe of ghosts, sorcerers, and monsters of all kinds gathered together for his funeral. Strange noises, moans, bursts of laughter, distant cries, to which other cries seem to respond. The beloved melody reappears again, but it has lost its character of nobility and timidity. It is no more than a dance tune, ignoble, trivial, and grotesque. It is she who is coming to the Sabbath. So you see, something expected into something not expected. So this movement can be divided into sections according to tempo changes. The introduction is a largo in common time, creating an ominous quality through the copious use of diminished seventh chords, not something that's lovely to hear all the time, dynamic variations and instrumental effects, particularly in the strings. Bar 21, the tempo changes to allegro and to the meter of 6/8. The return of the idée fixe as a vulgar dance tune, so now it's been changed, is depicted by the C clarinet. The idée fixe then returns as a prominent E-flat clarinet solo at bar 40. And the E-flat clarinet contributes a brighter timbre than the C clarinet. So you see, he is really making an effort of presenting a beautiful piece of music, but changed now. Jumping to the end, at bar 222, the witch's round dance motif is repeatedly stated in the strings to be interpreted by 3 syncopated notes in the brass. This leads to the rond de sabbat, Sabbath round, at bar 241, where the motif is finally expressed in full. The Dies Irae at the Rondeau de Sabbat ensemble section is at bar 414. So there are a host of effects, including trilling in the woodwinds and collegno in the strings. The climactic finale combines the somber Dies Irae melody, now in A minor, with the fugue of the Rondeau de Sabbat, building to a modulation into E-flat major, then chromatically into C major, ending on a C chord. So you see how it really doesn't follow the normal pattern. Now, how do you think this music was received when it was first premiered? What do you think, Lena?
Probably not good, because it's not the norm.
But that's why it fits perfectly in the Gothic horror genre. At the premiere of the At the premiere of the Symphonie Fantastique, there was protracted applause at the end, and the press reviews expressed both the shock and the pleasure the work had given. There were dissenting voices, such as that of Wilhelm Heinrich Riel, the conservative author of the Musikalische Charakterköpfe, who regarded the work as an abomination for which Berlioz would suffer in purgatory. Quite harsh. But despite the striking unconventionality of the work, it was generally well received, surprisingly. François-Joseph Fétis, founder of the influential Revue Musicale, wrote of it approvingly. And here's a surprise. Robert Schumann published an extensive and broadly supportive analysis of the piece.
But that fits again, because Schumann, I mean, the Kunstlied, which I made an episode about, and I mean, it is about telling a story of the text with the music.
Exactly.
So it's nothing else than telling story with the music. So I guess that's why Schumann is like amazed from that work.
Well, another fun fact, a later conductor, Leonard Bernstein, said of the hallucinatory aspects of the work. He said, Berlioz tells it like it is. You take a trip. You wind up screaming at your own funeral. Take a tip from Berlioz. That music is all you need for the wildest trip you can take to hell and back. End quote. So how has this music been shown in films, the Gothic horror genre? The main title sequence from Stanley Kubrick's film, The Shining, which I've watched, I love it, released in 1980, was scored by Wendy Carlos and Rachel Elkind. Within the title track is a reworking of the Dies Irae section of the Symphonie Fantastique's fifth movement, so Dreams of a Witch's Sabbath. Now, I would like to make a note. The Dies Irae traditional melody is translated from Latin as Day of Wrath. It is a somber chant dating back to the Middle Ages. The melody was originally used as part of funeral church services, usually as a sung mass for the dead. It has been used by composers to symbolize death, perhaps most prominently in Symphonie Fantastique. So, we have normal music, and then going to the abnormal to create Gothic horror. And I'm so glad that you brought up Kunstlied, because the next piece of music history is Danse Macabre, Opus 40 by Camille Saint-Saëns, a symphonic poem for orchestra written in 1874. So, quick review. A symphonic poem or tone poem is a piece of orchestral music, usually in a single, continuous movement, which illustrates or evokes the content of a poem, short story, novel, painting, landscape, or other non-musical source. So very interesting. It started out in 1872 as an art song for voice and piano, with French text by the poet Henri Cazales. However, in 1874, the composer expanded and reworked the piece into a symphonic poem, replacing the vocal line with a solo violin part. According to legend, Death appears at midnight every year on Halloween. He calls forth the dead from their graves to dance for him while he plays his fiddle, here represented by a solo violin. His skeletons dance for him until the cockerel crows at dawn, when they must return to their graves until the next year. The piece opens with a harp playing a single note, D, 12 times. the 12 Strokes of Midnight, which is accompanied by soft chords from the strings section. The solo violin enters playing the tritone, which was known as the diabolus in musica, the devil in music. The tritone it's a very naughty chord, let's just say that. During the medieval and Baroque eras, the tritone, consisting of an A and an E flat, in an example of scordatura tuning, the violinist's E string has actually been tuned down to the E flat to create the dissonant tritone. The first theme is heard on a solo flute, followed by the second theme, a descending scale on the solo violin, which is accompanied by soft chords from the strings section. The piece becomes more energetic. The dance is growing, and at its midpoint, right after a contrapuntal section based on the second theme, there's a direct quote played by the woodwinds of Dies Irae, a Gregorian chant from the Requiem that is melodically related to the work's second theme. The Dies Irae is presented unusually in a major key. Normally, a Dies Irae is in a minor key, but here, normal to abnormal, it is in a major key, as in a happier, they're happy of death. After this section, the piece returns to the first and second themes and climaxes with the full orchestra playing very strong dynamics. Then there is an abrupt break in the texture, and the coda represents the dawn breaking. So the cockerels crow, which is played by the oboe. The skeletons return to their graves. The piece makes particular use of the xylophone to imitate the sounds of rattling bones. Saint-Saëns used a similar motif in the Fossils movement of Carnival of the Animals, which I did a podcast on. The progression and melody of the minor waltz was similar to the jibes of the sailors' chorus in Helmsman, Steersman, Leave Your Watch, which begins the third act of Wagner's earlier opera, The Flying Dutchman. So very interesting. When Danse Macabre was first performed on 24th of January, 1874, as you predicted, Lena, in our other piece, it was not well received and caused widespread feelings of anxiety. Normal to abnormal. The 21st century scholar Roger Nichols mentions adverse reaction to the deformed Dies Irae plainsong, the horrible screeching from the solo violin, the use of a xylophone, and the hypnotic repetitions in which Nichols hears a pre-echo of Ravel's Bolero. Circling back to Disney. This piece of music was heard in a 2002 animated film, Mickey's House of Villains, and the 1999 Mickey Mouse Works episode titled Hansel and Gretel, starring Mickey Mouse and Minnie Mouse as the titular duo. In other places we can find this music being brought to modern culture. The piece is played in the 90s Buffy the Vampire Slayer episode Hush, in which the character Rupert Giles plays the song while describing the episode's villains, the gentlemen. The piece can be heard during the New Year's Eve festivities in the 2014 Gothic horror film Stonehurst Asylum. And fun fact, the piece was played during the 2024 Summer Olympics opening ceremony. Isn't that cool? Next on the list is The Sorcerer's Apprentice by Dukas. Do 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 do.
I love that.
Oh, I love that piece too. In French, it is called L'Apprenti Sorcier. It is also a symphonic poem completed in 1897. The premiere was given in Paris on May 18, 1897 by the Société Nationale de Musique, with the composer himself conducting. Subtitled Scherzo after a ballad by Goethe, the piece was based on Johann Wolfgang von Goethe's 1797 poem named Der Zauberlehrling. By far the most performed and recorded of Dukas' work, its notable appearance in, again, Walt Disney's 1940 animated film Fantasia has led to the piece becoming widely known to audiences outside the classical concert hall. So, how does this fit into Gothic horror? I'm going to look into the instrumentation. So the instrumentation of this piece consists of two flutes and piccolo, two oboes, two soprano clarinets, and bass clarinet, 3 bassoons and contrabassoon, 4 horns, 2 trumpets, 2 cornet, 3 trombones, timpani, glockenspiel, bass drum, cymbals, triangle, harp, and strings. That's a lot. Sounds pretty normal, but there is one instrument that stands out. The glockenspiel stands out for being the one instrument that doesn't quite fit into the perfect orchestra. Normal to abnormal. The formidable glockenspiel part is sometimes handled by a pianist playing a keyboard glockenspiel or celesta, but is usually played by a percussionist on a traditional glockenspiel, making it a common orchestral excerpt for percussion auditions. So, Disney's Fantasia. Although The Sorcerer's Apprentice was already a popular concert piece, it was brought to a much larger audience through its inclusion as one of 8 animated shorts based on classical music. In the film segment, also called The Sorcerer's Apprentice, Mickey Mouse plays the role of the apprentice. Disney had acquired the music rights in 1937 when he planned to release a separate Mickey Mouse film, which, at the suggestion of Leopold Stokowski, was eventually expanded into Fantasia. It was reproduced in Fantasia 2000 as the only segment from the original film to be used in the movie, as it uses 7 new segments conducted by Stokowski's successor, James Levine. And to quickly add a more modern composition that invokes the same Gothic horror sound, John Williams, another topic that I've covered, even took to the Gothic horror sound with his composition of Dracula from the movie in 1979. In my opinion, just like Halloween, this music pushes boundaries and includes a feature that doesn't sound right and doesn't fit into the conventional beliefs or structure that society has established. Perfect for Gothic horror sound. So this Halloween, I want to challenge you to go beyond just hearing the spooky music that surrounds you and really listen. Whether it's in horror movies, haunted house attractions, or even the eerie background tracks at a Halloween party, ask yourself, what is the composer doing to make this music sound so haunting? Is it the use of dissonance, as in the tritone? Unexpected pauses? Creepy instrumentation like the theremin, celesta, glockenspiel, the screeching violin? Maybe strange rhythms? Or even silence? And more importantly, what doesn't fit? Is there a melody that sounds too sweet for the horror around it, such as the Dies Irae? A major chord that sneaks into a dark scene? A child's lullaby played out of tune? These little musical mistakes, intentional or not, often create the most unsettling effects, as we have seen in the music we went through. So this Halloween, as you listen, don't just get scared, get curious. I hope you enjoyed Gothic horror music as much as I did. If you like this episode, don't forget to subscribe and leave a review.
Next time, we'll delve into another fascinating chapter of music history. Until then, keep listening and discovering the stories beyond the music. See you next time.
See you next time, and happy Halloween!